Establishing central control, this opening gambit immediately contests the crucial d4 square. Developing the knight to f6 immediately contests the center and prepares for a flexible pawn structure. Fortifying the center's grip, this advances white's territorial ambition. Embracing the fianchetto, black signals a dynamic defense focused on long-term peace play. Bolstering the e4 square while weakening the king's diagonal comes with inherent risk, potentially inviting tactical incursions. Solidifying the fianchetto setup, this bishop immediately eyes the central squares and prepares for potential kingside development. Opening the center like this invites a dynamic clash, potentially leading to sharp tactical exchanges. Solidifying the center and preparing to challenge white's pawn mass, this move opens a diagonal for the bishop and supports a potential e5 break. Developing the knight here supports the center and prepares for queenside castling, a solid positional choice. Securing the monarch provides immediate safety, preparing for active piece development and potential pawn thrusts in the center. Developing the bishop here aims to bolster the kingside and potentially prepare for a central pawn push, while avoiding early conflicts. Boldly challenging the center, this pawn push ignites immediate central tension and opens attacking lines. Developing the knight to e2 strategically prepares for kingside castling and reinforces the central pawn structure, potentially limiting black's central expansion. Developing the knight to c6 efficiently challenges white's center and prepares to exploit the open files. Aims to connect rooks and prepare kingside castling, solidifying white's central pawn structure. Solidifying the central pawn structure, the knight repositions for better control of the d5 square and potential pawn breaks. Instantly locking the center, white gains space but sacrifices central control for future attacking prospects. Shifting the knight to the edge subtly prepares for kingside pawn advances, aiming to exploit white's slightly weakened f3 square. Solidifying the kingside pawn structure now aims to prevent queenside counterplay and prepare for potential kingside expansion. A bold thrust into the center, challenging white's pawn chain and opening lines for black's pieces. Developing the bishop solidifies the kingside and aims to control the long diagonal, potentially preparing for a future kingside attack. Sacrificing the pawn opens lines for your pieces and potentially threatens the f2 square, complicating white's kingside. Opening the f-file now solidifies central control, preparing for potential advances on the kingside while challenging black's pawn structure. Liberating the knight to its natural square, preparing for eventual central pressure or flank advances. Securing the kingside from potential knight incursions, this move preemptively shores up white's central pawn structure. Opening the queenside for the bishop and knights, while subtly challenging white's pawn chain. Solidifying the queenside pawn structure, this move aims to prevent immediate threats and create a more robust defense. Safeguarding the king from potential diagonal threats, this maneuver prepares for a more dynamic piece deployment. Unleashing the kingside pawns aggressively, white aims to puncture black's defensive shell and seize the initiative. Preparing a knight's dramatic repositioning, aiming to bolster the kingside defense and potentially contest the central light squares. Pushing the knight to g3 aims to control the kingside light squares and potentially support a kingside pawn storm, though it weakens the f3 pawn's defense. Developing the bishop to an active diagonal aims to unpin the knight and potentially target white's weakened kingside. Initiating an audacious queenside pawn storm, white boldly exposes his monarch to potential counterplay. Creating a defensive pawn wall on the kingside offers some protection but stifles piece activity and concedes valuable space. Unleashing a pawn storm on the kingside, white aims to disrupt black's king safety and seize initiative. Unlocking the h-file pressure feels like the right response, accepting structural concessions for immediate activity. Unleashing the h-file aims to shatter black's king's sanctuary, seeking swift destruction or positional dominance. Unleashing a bishop on the queenside offers dynamic counterplay, challenging white's central pawn chain and potentially opening lines for black's rooks. Opening the h-file offers attacking chances, but it also exposes the king to potential counterplay along the now cleared diagonal. Instantly, black invites tactical complications, sacrificing pawn structure for potential piece activity. Centralizing the knight offers crucial support for the queenside advance, anticipating potential pawn breaks. Gaining central space with the knight requires careful maneuvering. Ensure it finds a solid outpost. Unlocking the h-file, white aggressively seeks weaknesses around black's seemingly safe haven. Seeking to reroute the queen to a more active square, potentially supporting a kingside advance or contesting central influence. Reinforcing the king's flank, this operation on the open file aims to disrupt black's queenside plans. Shifting the king towards the queenside attempts to escape the immediate kingside storm, though it invites potential queenside pressure. Sacrificing the rook opens the h-file, creating an immediate threat against the black king and disrupting any defensive setup. Reclaiming the attacked piece, black enters a crucial phase of positional maneuvering, seeking to untangle their pieces and exploit white's exposed king. Exposing the king's sanctuary with this bishop maneuver, white aims to exploit the open lines created by the recent exchanges, forcing a critical decision. The queen's excursion to f3, while seemingly active, leaves the bishop on g7 exposed and overlooks the open h-file's potential. Reclaiming the open file provides a crucial escape route for the rook, creating attacking possibilities. Sacrificing the knight exposes white's king, opening vital lines for a swift counterattack. Unleashing the bishop to exploit the exposed king after a material sacrifice is a bold, forcing play.